right, we are live. Welcome, everyone, to the Comic Book Conservation Live Show, episode 12 today. Hope everybody had a great Memorial Day weekend. Honor our fallen soldiers, and happy to be back. I'm so pumped for today's show. We got a great show, and I have, as always, my two co-hosts, Captain Larry from Flying L Comics.
Hey,
I don't know how to say this. Straubing.
Oh,
there you go.
I'm in Germany.
Awesome.
I'm sitting at my dining room table. So
very nice. And Phil with two L's from Phantom Restoration. Say hi to the people, Phil.
Hey, everybody. Coming to you from the border of Brooklyn, Queens, New York.
I'm coming to you, as always, from an undisclosed location, the Texas Hill Country, where it is about to be 100 degrees every single day for the rest of the summer.
Oh, I remember those days. Make sure you go out and work in the yard about noon.
I've been getting my yard work done, and the phase during which you can do yard work in Texas has almost come to an end. It'll be then the next 5 months where you go outside and melt.
Yeah, I remember.
El Nino, I guess, is coming to an end, and La Nina's begun, I think, statistically. And so we do expect a bit cooler and a bit wetter here in central Texas in the next year. So I'm looking forward to that. Because we've had a long drought, like an 11-year drought or something. It's been pretty bad here. So looking forward to that. What happened in the last 2 weeks?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, we had to take a break on it for everybody with Memorial Weekend. I got a bunch of no.
We're only human. Yeah.
I just been working actually I've been on the road. I'm still on the road actually.
Yeah.
I'll finally get home and get back to work on the 5th. So at least that's my plan.
Nice.
Well, one thing that's been happening is some leaves have been cast.
Yes, they have.
Leaves are being cast.
Oh yeah.
At Flying L Comics and in our conservation Facebook page. So that's been growing like crazy. I think we have over 300 members there now. Two more joined just since we did the announcement today at 2 p.m. So I'm really happy about the growth there. I think I'm gonna throw. I have a screen for that. I'm gonna throw that up just so people, just as a reminder, go here, folks.
There it is.
Go here, check it out. Very collaborative, very supportive. If this is not enough in terms of a weekly dose for comic book conservation, get the rest of your dose here. It's fun. Like I said, very collaborative. Everybody's happy to see everybody there. So we have a show today in kind of 3 parts. It's 3 parts plus a bonus, actually. We're going to kick off with, as we usually do, the conservation market report. I found a book that sold this past week that I'm super excited about. How I get really excited about certain Golden Age books. This one does it for me, and we have a surprise angle on it where we have a connection to this book that I'm super excited to talk about. So we're going to open with that. That'll be our segment 1 plus bonus. And then we are going to move on to a segment by Captain Larry about all of the amazing work he's been doing with the leaf casting. And I have to say, a lot of it is going to be pointing you to his channel. I was just absolutely amazed at the first work that you showed us from the table.
Too.
Likewise.
And so we'd like to dig into what you did a little bit deeper than what you did in that video, right? And make it a little bit more interactive. So
I'm sure there's some questions.
Yeah. So before we get started, let's say hi to everyone.
yeah.
David the Starman is
Hey,
here.
everybody.
Batman in Salem Comics.
Yep.
I'm not sure if we've seen Batman in Salem Comics before. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Don Carter's a normal. Ben Stewart's a regular. I'm seeing all of the
Well, I
regulars.
believe Batman in Salem Comics, isn't that Peter Alici?
Oh, I bet it is. That's Peter. Yes.
I think that's Peter.
Peter. And we need to have,
Yep. Yeah, there it is. It's me, Peter. Yeah.
We definitely need to have Peter on soon. Peter, let's discuss the schedule when that'll work out. James, raining every day last 3 weeks. Where are you hailing from, James? Someplace rainy. My buddy Mike, Hugo Danner's here. And
Got Ben Stewart.
if everybody could give us a thumbs up, we'd appreciate it. Helps other people find the channel. And without any further ado, I think let's jump into segment 1 because, like I said, I'm really excited about this.
Love this book. Love it.
Let's see. I guess I'm running without our band branners. This is what we want right here. Yeah, there we go. So this is a book that I'm super excited to talk about. Wonderworld Comics number 13. Most people have probably never seen one. Most people may not have even ever seen a picture of one, but it is such a cool book. And a conserved copy sold in the last week, and a restored copy sold earlier this year. So we're going to do a little price comparison, talk about these two books. And like I said, we have a little bonus surprise content on this. So Wonderworld Comics number 13, May 1940. This is early days, people. This is way pre-war. It's a Fox Feature Syndicate book. So Fox Feature Syndicate actually put out some amazing material, especially like they're heavily pre-war in terms of their really good content, I think. And I'm not sure what happened with the creative team that they had working for them. The material that they do during the war does not quite rise to the same standard as Timely and National at the time, in my opinion anyway. But their pre-war stuff, it stands up there with anyone. And they had Lou Fine, they had Joe Simon, they had Will Eisner. They had just really, frankly, they had a who's who of Golden Age creative types that really stood, frankly, above a lot of the rest of the fodder out there at the time. They're also exceedingly rare. So look at this, 23
25.
Universal. Good grief.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
nuts.
good luck collecting Wonderworld comics, right?
You're gonna be waiting a long time for that one.
And look at the
Heavy,
median
heavy.
grade. Oh, we're gonna touch on that, Larry. So the median grade was actually statistically tied between 2.5 and 3. Like they're so rare in grade. Look, there's only 2 examples higher than a 6 in the
And
census.
most common are like 1 and 1.5s that you see.
Yeah. It's just such a difficult book. One conserved copy, one restored copy. And we happen to be fortunate enough that they both sold in the last few months. So we're going to look at the value. They're both 4.0s. So we're going to look at the value of these two books today. Now, I wrote this. It says no post 2018 sales of universal copies. So with only 21 copies in the census, they almost never trade hands. This is actually technically incorrect. There was a 1.0 that sold in 2019, and I misread Go Collect here. But regardless, none in a public forum since 2019. So none of the real pandemic run-up or crash to reflect in the market here. So not very useful for us in terms of considering fair market value of this super rare book. I do want to just look at this cover. So this is a Joe Simon cover, and many people know Joe Simon. So Joe is one of the Golden Age greats. I don't know, some, I guess, consider him to be just the greatest artist of the Golden Age. He collaborated with Jack Kirby in creating a lot of really important characters and doing a lot of really important stories, including Captain America and a lot of, and the revised Sandman, and the list is really longer than I want to get into here. But for me, this is really a standout cover for Joe Simon. And it's up there with the other really talented artists that they had in the stable at Wonderworld, including my personal favorite, Lou Fine. And this is a beautiful book when you look at the composition. And there's a reason why it was called the Golden Age, people. I would say put this cover up against any cover for any Marvel or DC comic book today, and it holds its own, and it embarrasses a lot of modern covers. It's just these fine illustrators that were in the business when they started, when the Golden Age began, they're just cut from a different cloth. And so this is a highly desirable book. And frankly, having a conserved 4.0 come up for auction is just something that doesn't happen very often. So it was pretty awesome to be able to watch it this week. Here is the CGC Graders Notes on this book. So 4.0, page quality is cream to off-white. It was graded in June of 2020. Obviously, it's conserved.
4 years ago.
The label text says, conservation includes pieces added to cover, tear seals to cover, cover reinforced. So one thing that you may be scratching your head over is pieces added to cover. If you know the comic book conservation rules, you can't add pieces to the cover and get a conserved grade today in 2024. However, in 2020, you could. So if we dig deeper here into the grader's notes, it says piece fill cover. It says archival material, high quality, up to 2 bindery chips, spine A1. So A1 is the best professional grade work and materials. Reinforcement to cover, archival material, high quality, A1. Tear seals to cover, archival material, high quality. Bottom back cover, A1. Tear seals to cover, archival material, high quality. Top front cover, A1. A crease that somehow the person working on this book couldn't fix. Full right of front cover. Light staining to cover, multiple chips out of cover. This would normally be where we would speculate as to exactly what the work that was done here would be.
I heard that dig.
But today we're not going to speculate because guess what, folks? Our very own Phil from Phantom Restoration did this conservation work. So he's going to actually walk us through what he did, and we're going to jump over to a small deck he put together to show us the work. So I was shocked to learn this book started life as a 1.0 universal, and it traded hands in 2019 for about $750. Tell us about the book, Phil.
All right, I'll take it away. Yeah, so full disclosure, I bought the book. I love it. I saw the cover and I was like, man, I think it's a travesty that on the right side of the label there doesn't say classic cover, because this is I mean, maybe it's just because it's not so well known, but if you look at the run too, this is right up there with the other ones labeled classic.
It is, yeah. And this run has some amazing covers.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
So I bought this at the time when I was, buying a lot of books to see if I could create equity in them, and this seemed like a perfect candidate. If you look at the left side of the book, there you can see tape, and this was back when CGC would include extra notes on the label. So it says spine of cover completely split and reattached with tape. Cover detached. So that's where the 1.0 came from.
Sure. A nice looking 1.0, like pretty complete.
Oh, yeah. And the tape too.
But a technical grade of 1.0 is exactly correct for this book.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Especially since you don't see it here, but there was a little bit of paper missing along the spine too, so it wasn't a perfect split. But thankfully, as it goes with tape, part of it is on the person removing the tape, but part of it is inherent in the tape. Sometimes tape is just done damage where you go to remove it and the color is compromised. In this case, as you can see, it was almost a complete success.
Look at this magic. Look at the magic that Phil worked here.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Oh, great job.
Such a great.
So you started with tape removal.
Yep. So I started the tape removal, and then so there's pictures of the inside. I haven't seen these pictures in a while. I actually had to when Paul sent me the picture, I was like, hey, I recognize that book. I have pictures of it. So this could be a good one to discuss. And I saved the pictures.
Yeah, look at the house ad too.
Yeah, exactly.
For these Fox Syndicate books. I mean,
weird comics, science comics.
I would love to have that Fantastic Comics issue. Man.
Each one of those books, incredibly sought after, rare, highly demanded, incredibly tough to find in higher grades. All of these books are. So here's a picture of what it looked like after the tape was removed. And now this was done years ago. So this was done traditionally. And this was kind of right at the time when I was experimenting a little bit with trying to get better color match with the layered mending tissue. And I had made a color grid where I showed, adding this color, and this color will give you this color. But shortly after this period, I think within 8 to 10 months, CGC changed the standards where this would have to be leaf casted now to get the same conserved grade. However, if you see in the top edge there's a little bit of a piece missing. And then later, I think you can see another picture of the back cover where now if this book was reworked and the cover was cast, I bet the technical grade would be a little bit higher now because you're able to add missing paper on edges where you couldn't add it traditionally like I could here.
Yeah. So in summary here, you use the traditional mending techniques and materials, which at the time CGC considered conservation, not restoration. They've since changed the standards so that only leaf casting now counts for the work that you did here.
Yeah.
And you created quite a bit of equity in the work that you did. But to your point, there's still meat on the bone here with the new techniques that are available today, which really is incredible.
It might seem weird too, but just to clarify, part of the reasoning why at the time CGC allowed the piece fills like this was they were viewed as structural. So anything along the spine there is structural, so I could add the full piece. But that piece at the very top there in the back cover, that's not part of the spine. It's too far away. So you couldn't add that. So in this case, the technical grade, I was able to add quite a bit of missing paper. So you can see here, it's much more apparent on the back cover. So you can see before on the tape, after the tape was removed. And then at this angle, it's kind of tough to see the color match. If I actually pull up the original slide of the book in the conserved 4 holder, the color match in the back cover, looking at it straight on, the color match is very
We're gonna jump back to those images and we'll show that. Yeah. It's actually a pretty solid color match. You can tell, but to your point, it
wasn't perfect. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, are you trying to make this perfect, right? As you say, it's a structural repair. It's not trying to mislead anybody into thinking that it, isn't something it is. It was made so that the book could be handled and read again. Yep. And that was the rationale at the time.
Yep. I think that might be the last slide I actually have.
Ben says, can rarity be extreme to a fault? It definitely can with respect to asset prices. If something is super rare, so rare that people basically get sort of tired of chasing it because they give up because it seems hopeless, then it'll actually be less sought after. So
if I can do
there's a sweet spot for rarity where something is attainable enough by enough people, but still not attainable by all the people that want it.
Yeah.
Did you jump me back to the other deck?
Yeah, I just popped so you can see
Yeah.
the back cover there. You can see that
Absolutely.
it looks much more natural. That was the idea. But I actually do remember looking at the photos from the outside. I had done the work and I didn't want to rework the very bottom piece fill that I did, and that one is slightly whiter versus the two top pieces that are slightly creamer. But because the bottom layer mending tissue I used was a creamier color than the other, so it was it kind of bothered me. But I was doing so much work at the time. It was my own book. It was the work was sufficient. But you can see it there. I can scrutinize it, my old work now more.
Sure.
More
And
currently.
the other thing of note here is that this book did not get an aqueous bath. There was no cleaning of this cover, of deacidification, or any of the things. So you tend not to do that as a general rule to every book. You will only do that when it's necessary for some other goal that you're trying to achieve generally. But also specifically, these Fox Syndicate books are not like other Golden Age books, and they're not nearly as robust.
Yeah. Also, I mean, you can make the argument now it's perfectly fine the way it is. Some people would prefer the unclean cover, but at some point this book could be reworked. The cover could be cleaned, casted. Everything would look much more seamless. This book would come back.
That's my point. Yeah, that's my point. It's much harder if you haven't done.
Yeah.
If you haven't done a wash to kind of give yourself a uniform base on which to work, it's much more difficult to do this color matching because the paper varies in tonal quality from the edge to the center. And I noticed on the interior of the front cover, these water spots, right?
Exactly. So the 4.0 took those into effect. So if this cover was clean. So that is part of the catch, though, is that I do know at the time my rationale was that books would sell better conserved as long as the cover wasn't cleaned, because people buying the books, reviewing the work is potentially reversible, even if they weren't buying it with the intention of that. But a book with a clean cover, you can't unclean, which I understand.
And to be frank, like less is more, right? If someone's going to err, I would much rather them err on the conservative side of having done less work. So I'm not at all questioning your decision here. I'm actually just pointing out that the color match is much more difficult if you're not cleaning the cover first. Correct. For me, I would want to clean this cover, but I'd also be afraid to do it, man.
I think now it would be just to get a better cast. But that said, you can technically leaf cast a cover without washing it, which some people would have a preference for. But I think my opinion has changed now at this point, where I think it's got to be done. I think if you're going to do the work, you might as well deacidify the paper. And the more that we do, honestly, the more that we do, the more will be out there, and the more education and understanding there will be about it.
Well, what I'm leaning towards, and I think you talked to Matt Nelson about it, is, for the conserved grade, really the book to be truly conserved has to be deacidified. Because it's not conserved, because it's going to continue to really deteriorate over the period of time.
Absolutely. The wash and the stain removal for me are byproducts of my primary goal, which is the deacidification.
Yep.
And that's why I would lean toward wanting to do it here again, although I'd be afraid, because it's just come on, you're messing with one of the 23, slabbed copies of this known. Actually, I happen to know there's at least one over at CBCS, so maybe 24, but come on. It's just such a rare book, and
go big or go home.
These are sure, but these Fox books are not the same as the books from National or Timely at the time. They are not as robust. They just are not.
Yeah. That's why a lot of them, you see the spines are split, but the rest of them are otherwise in fairly nice shape. And they were split then and taped then. And it's not like this was recent. So
no, I think you did amazing work on this.
Oh, absolutely.
You really. We're going to talk about the equity you created. Your buy-in here was $750. You have materials and time and a submission to CGC back in 2000 and
2020. Yeah.
Sorry, 2020. And now we're going to jump back to this deck and talk about present day. So CGC notes, this just sold May 26th, just this past week, for $1,560. And frankly, I think this was a steal. I'm shocked that it sold this low. There's just so few copies of this out there. It changes hands so infrequently that I think the buyer of this book did very well. For context, a copy sold in 2019, a 1.0 sold in 2019 for just under $1,000. How is a 1.0 worth almost $1,000 when a 4.0 is only worth $1,500?
Whoever
I get
got
this is conserved.
Yeah.
But yeah, and like we talked about, there's still meat on the bone here. So with the techniques that are available today, as you say, I mean, I'll just put a flag in the sand. You guys can agree or disagree. But if this is fully leaf casted, this is a 4.5 or a 5, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I might have been presumptuous saying a 6 before, but I've seen crazy.
I'm not saying it couldn't get there. I think with the spine ticks and the color breaking,
spine ticks, that's what would drag it down, is the spine ticks.
Yeah.
But anyway, beautiful book, beautiful work. Thanks for sharing with us the
absolutely
work
amazing
that you did, Phil, and great job. I mean, it's magic just to have removed the tape as beautifully as you did, frankly.
Wait, a 1.0 to a 4.0? That's
I was super happy when I checked my submission. I was like, ooh, a 4. Nice.
So what's interesting is, as I said, only one restored copy, only one conserved copy. They both happen to be 4.0s. They both happen to have sold this year. So we've got a great comparison that we can do here. So this is a 4.0 conserved. It presents similarly. The colors on this restored one are just a little more vivid than on the conserved one. And
it's been cleaned, too.
Actually, I think this slide 1 is the only place where I have them side by side, but you can look there. And these are both imaged by Heritage, although at slightly different times. So there may have been a little bit of difference in terms of the lighting, but Heritage is usually pretty consistent. And you can see the reds are just, and even the blue. Really all the colors
in general are less dull,
are more intense on this restored copy, just for reference to see them side by side. Oops.
As we said, not like you really have your choice when these come up, and you're like, well, I'll wait for the next one with better color strikes. It might be a while. But still, some people are patient. It's understandable.
So page quality here, also off-white to white. Restoration includes spine split, sealed to cover, cover cleaned, back cover detached from top staple. That means it's still detached. Why you would bother doing the restoration and not attaching it, not clear to me. Cover cleaned, large stain, entire spine. I did not see that on either the front or the back view of this book. I guess it's here. Can you see cursor? I guess it's to the right of the where you see the text block on the bottom right, just to the right of it toward the spine. I can see it.
Oh yeah, I see that now. Yep. I'm sure whoever submitted the book probably didn't know it was restored, and that's why it has defects that would benefit from other restoration. It's really the only logical conclusion.
Yeah, or they didn't have the skills to tackle the other things. Spine split sealed.
Yeah, they would seal a spine split but not reinforce a stable. But maybe.
And it's B1. So it might literally be exactly what you did, Phil, but in 2023 it's considered B1 instead of A1.
Sometimes you get varying results too. I mean, for what it's worth, I've submitted books with traditional work and I've got B and C level work and then resubmitted it and gotten conserved grades. because normally if you're getting a C level spine split, it's glue, which is the most common amateur spine split
Sure.
that you see. Yep.
Let's I think from JCP we have a question I want to get
Yeah,
to.
I was just going to get to that one for JCP.
Let's wrap up this segment, then we can talk about it a little bit more. We could even bring Phil's deck back up. This book sold for $16.80 back in February of this year, so just a couple months ago. I think it's reasonable that it's sold for more than the conserved book. I mean, normally we on the show prefer conserved books to restored books, and I think the market generally prefers them as well. But in this case, very similar work was done, and this one has slightly more vibrant color. I think they're both really inexpensive, frankly, for how rare this book is. I think they were both very well bought.
Oh, the conserved book was stolen.
Yeah. So this is a virtual tie. I didn't bother to put, it was a couple % less for conserved. It's essentially the same.
Yeah.
And my conclusions are rare pre-war golden age comic book estimation of fair market value is challenging. Like I said, there hasn't been a public sale of one of these, a copy of this book in Universal since 2019. Yep. And I think again here, buy the book, not the grade. So the Golden Age books are not generally being chased by casual observers, right? These are the diehards. These are folks like us that are chasing them down. And I think folks like us generally are buying the book more than we're buying the grade. We're looking at the overall potential of the book, the equity potential. And so I think it's very reasonable that the restored book here sold for more because it just had better eye appeal at the end of the day. And that's not a knock on your work, Phil. That was just the quality of the paper you started with, right?
Yeah. But also that one wasn't missing any paper really like the other one was, or having, some color break increases, which were minor, but still there. Yeah.
So you bought a book for around $750. It's worth about a little over $1,500 today. You had time and materials and a submission to CGC back in 2020. Mm-hmm. You easily created $500 worth of equity in that book, if not a bit more. And even at that price, again, I think it was an incredible buy. I would not have been shocked if this book sold for $2,500 or even double what it sold for. I would not have been shocked at all. I was not actively bidding on this one. I sort of was watching it. I have a couple other I have one in particular, Wonderworld, a comic that I am hunting, but that'll be a story for another day. And I don't want to tell anybody what it is since there's only about 12 of them in the world. Why don't we, before we jump into the next segment, let's talk about this comment here from JCP. Do you want to discuss, Phil?
Yeah.
Your method. I will find a way to highlight you. Let's see. I think I go like this. There we go. Ooh, that was really highlighted.
Hey. Right on me. Put me on the spot. Were you trying to put all of us?
No, I was trying to have you bigger than the rest of us in this view, but I don't know how to switch me and you.
I just put him on the main screen. I don't care.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Hey, so I have some trays right there. And chemical trays. And so to answer your question, it's basic solvents. And the biggest issue with removing tape is knowing how to disassemble books, knowing that you're dealing with chemicals that can cause neurological damage. So you have to be wearing a mask. It's scary stuff if you're casually doing it, which I've seen people do, which is not like I do it and I try to do it as efficiently, as quickly as I can because, I don't want to say it's a hazardous process, but it's not just like mending. You are using chemicals. So that said, you have to know how to disassemble a book and reassemble it. You have to know how to remove the tape efficiently. The cover's always soaked. You have to be able to remove the carrier and then scrape away the remaining adhesive, which is very often easier said than done. And then reassemble a book. So it's a process. It's a process, and oftentimes too, you don't know if you're going to be removing color. Sometimes, I've worked on some high end books where I was optimistic in some ways, and then found out that the book was only going to allow so much due to other defects and damage that occurred in the past. So like it's. But if you know what you're doing, you can get it off well enough and leave very little, evidence that it was there. Sometimes there's like minor staining of the paper, but beyond that.
And
so
these chemicals we're talking about, besides being highly toxic, they're highly flammable. So I was using hexane in the beginning. I don't use it anymore because it's so toxic, but it works great.
Hexane does work very well. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, the toughest part is the adhesive that's left behind after you remove the carrier.
Yeah.
Man, especially if the paper itself was already toast before the tape went on. It can be such a mess. It's incredible.
once that tape residue's bonded to the paper fibers, you're not going to get it out.
Let me see if I can illustrate a picture, right? So let's say this is the edge of a book, and there's a tear in the paper that's like a hook, and you have a piece of tape over that, right? And then you go to remove the tape, but you have all the adhesive still there. How do you, if you're scraping it, but you still have the tear, you have to be cautious of where the paper is torn. It's such a small area, you can't just scrape all in the same direction, or you'll start lifting up the paper and lifting up color and lifting. It is surgery. It really is.
Surgery. Yeah, I did that. I was literally using a needle to lift micro balls of adhesive off. It took 8 hours just trying to get this one little section off. It's very painstaking.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, let's go to our next segment, and we're going to be talking about
Woohoo!
Yeah, I'm excited to hear
work
this from your point of view.
that's been going on over at Flying L Comics. There's a link in the description to the work, and Larry's put up a video recently. Again, there's more posts about it in our Facebook page. So if you want to learn more, come join us there. But Larry, again, I've been blown away by the work. So I just want to hear it from you, and we're gonna let you take it away, and then we're looking forward to sort of asking questions as we go. And of course, we're looking forward to the chat being able to interact as well. So take it away.
Okay. Well, I wanted to learn leaf casting. I look at the work that Kenny Sanderson does at Sanderson Studios, and that by far is the gold standard, in my opinion, for leaf casting. Yeah. I mean, the work that he does is amazing. And I said, I want to do that. But I also didn't want to spend $5,000 to $10,000 on a leaf casting table, because literally, folks, that's what they cost, and they come out of Europe. One's British, the other one's German, and they're very expensive machines. So I said, I need to build one of these things. So I had an idea in my head, and I started looking at the parts in the garage, and I literally tinkered this thing together, and I kept it down cheap. I used parts from Amazon, and the whole thing was less than $300. So it was, and it worked right away, which was great.
Can you control the slides, or do you need me to walk through them, or
I cannot control the slides. I need you to do it for
do
me.
you want me to go next slide?
Yep, that works
There
great.
we go.
So these were my main parts. So I needed something to create a vacuum chamber from. And a deep tub like this is perfect because it keeps a nice, even vacuum. Because I was using a shop vac, and just for clarity, the shop vac has a variable speed on it, which I'll address in a minute. But these are the main parts. You have the tub. You have a membrane, which in this case I used a shower pan liner. It's thick. It's You can make it perfectly flat. It makes a fantastic seal on the tub. And then over the top of that, I used a laser bed, basically from these guys do laser engraving, and I happened to have one from an old project in my garage. So I said, yep, I was almost threw it out,
I love
literally.
it.
Yeah, and so I got this one and I put it all together. And then the other piece you see there is just a shop vac coupler, because you have to drill a hole in the side of this tub just to connect your shop vac up.
Mm-hmm.
So these were my main parts. The tub itself was the most expensive piece. It was about $164.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else was, the laser table was about $50, and the membrane was $50, and the coupler was like just $10. So I had this thing in my head to put it together. Go to the next slide. All right, so this is what I want to talk about is advantages of leaf casting. So this was actually my very first project book. It was a Smash Comics 21. I had picked it up from from eBay. It was a CBCS graded. I think it was an amateur conserved, is what they called it. The cover was glued to the first wrap, and not only that, the cover was in two separate pieces. But I didn't discover that until I actually removed the glue. So I went through the process, and what you're looking at here is actually the first wrap. The glue has been removed, but this is what was left over. It is on a light table, so it's got some reflectivity to show the thickness and thinness of the paper. But what leaf casting will do for the uninitiated, we can take and fill all of these voids with paper pulp that matches as close as we can texture, and it literally bonds and becomes new paper. It gives it fills in all those holes. It makes it less delicate. You go on to the next page. Okay, so here, same page. This is just at the bottom of it. Now you look at the bottom, you can see right where the discoloration is. That's actually the part of the light table reflecting through, but you can see the micro splits going up through the base, and plus that big chunk. Now every single one of these wraps, including the cover, had that big chunk in the top and the bottom. And what that is when the book is closed and all fully assembled, that is like a gigantic rounded corner, or in this case, there's just a whole lot of material missing.
Mm-hmm.
So what we wanted to do is fill that in, give it back its strength. So once it's run through the casting process, it fills in not only that big chunk at the same thickness, but also fills in all those little micro cracks. So you now have given basically a strength to this old paper. You gave it new life. And all these pages were deacidified. Now you always want to do that before you do anything. And we just had a nice working surface. So go to the next slide, if you would.
Mm-hmm.
So over here, this is what it looks like. So it's amazing difference. You can see all those little micro cracks I was just talking about are fully filled.
Mm-hmm.
you basically have a brand new wrap. The colors are vibrant from the deacidification. The fill is fantastic, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back here, but this is the very
Pat
first
yourself on the back.
leaf cast. That's the very first leaf cast I ever did.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
I have played around with it, and to be quite frank, I'm not comfortable. People generally view my channel as instructional, and I always reference the conservation literature and point them to where I'm getting stuff from. So I don't really put anything out until I'm really ready for it. And I have been playing with it for a while, and I have not been able to put together results like this. So hats off.
Thank you, sir.
Very impressive, Larry.
Mike says no sound, but I think I hear everybody. Mike, it might be a problem.
I think it's on
your
Mike's
end.
end.
Yeah, I hear you just fine. Yeah.
If anybody else also has no sound, let us know, and so we can help Mike figure out if it's just at his location.
Yeah.
So what I have questions. Should
Sure.
we wait to the end, or do you have
let's-
more
let's
slides?
start-
We're gonna go through.
Yeah, there's more
material
slides.
first?
Yeah, let's go through some more material. Next slide basically is what we want is the overall appeal to getting this graded. And this is like Phil mentioned earlier, leaf casting is the only acceptable method now to basically get that conserved look if you're going to fill in missing voids. And in this particular book, it was a huge missing void. And so
on every single leaf, right? In the
every
cover and all the way through. So
every single, I have in this particular book, I have the wrap and 16, the cover wrap plus 16 wraps. So this is a huge, 64-page book.
Yeah.
So it's not pat myself on the back again. It's done.
Larry, can I ask you your decision to do an interior wrap versus the cover? Was that because the colors are generally more stable, so you might have a little more play?
You mean to do it first to start there?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I wanted to tackle the cover last because like I said, my training.
Smart.
Well, the training wheels are on.
Exactly.
There's no school to learn how to do leaf casting. You literally have to teach yourself. And every single wrap, I got better and better and better. And I did go through all 16 wraps. They're all done. And I'm at the reassembly point. So I'm looking forward to that when I get home. And, of course, we'll crank out another video for that. But I was able to do all 16 wraps in 2 days. And this process, using the casting table, doing the leaf casting, getting it dried and trimmed, 40 minutes each wrap. And so it was a high production. Now I am running 4 heat presses, and I am drying these under pressure. So it was just really high production. That's how I have to do things in my life. So
you got the time down efficiently, but to those listening, this is not just a walk in the park. This is a process.
It is a process. Yeah. Once I got it down,
it makes it look easy.
Well, the first one went really slow, and once I got into the groove of it, there was just kaboom, 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 and I had a system going, and so you'll see it hopefully very soon what it looks like when it's all finished.
Yeah. I've said it before, but I think it bears repeating. One of Larry's special skills is picking good projects.
Mm-hmm.
This is the perfect project to do this work on. Smash comics are cool, but they're not highly sought after in the marketplace. He found a great candidate where, if he had destroyed it, so be it, right? And because someone had already destroyed it, frankly, somebody had already gobbled the entire spine up with glue and hadn't even glued the damn book back together, frankly, right? So
it was in terrible shape. Yeah, if you watch the video, just the glue removal itself was
Did you cast the cover yet? Or just the interior pages.
Nope, I cast the cover. We'll get it's in a slide. Just stand
Nice.
by. So
speaking of in the slide, I think maybe we have a question from Jerry, the jitterbug.
Jerry.
But should we? It might make more sense to cover it after you.
Okay.
After we get to or I don't remember everything in your deck. Do you want to just tackle it now?
Yeah. Actually, let me pull this up here. I got all my questions up there. That's easier.
Sorry.
Okay. Curious, do you think the interior should be done first? So you know how wide the cover should be. Actually, Jerry, that is an awesome question. And coming from you, you are my other inspiration and expert. So, yes. I would do all the interior pages first. In fact, my intention for reassembly is to put put all the wraps together, reinsert the staples to the wraps only, leaving the cover off. And once I get that, then I can take the measurements for the cover, see what the gap is, because there was a significant gap in this.
Yeah, you have complete loss, so you don't know how wide it's supposed to be.
Yeah, so you can put the edges on and make sure you get it right.
Isn't it true also that you had some complete loss even in wrap 1?
Yeah, there was. Yeah,
you had to guess about the total width of wrap 1 even. Yeah.
Well, actually, the wrap 1, it wasn't in 2 pieces. So it was there. All we did is I manually scraped the glue off.
Okay.
And then we get that.
Some paper loss. It wasn't totally split.
There was paper loss, but I didn't lose any width loss. And the cover halves, those were clearly in 2 separate pieces, and there was definitely material missing from that, which we had to reconstruct. But yeah, to answer your question, Jerry, I would absolutely do the interior before I did the cover. The cover would be the last item. So what we have here in the slide, this is actually the pieces. Mm-hmm. I got everything together. First thing I did was lay out the membrane and cut a panel over the top. And then, because I wanted to have access to the tub inside the vacuum chamber, I laid out Velcro. And this is like industrial strength, the super strong stuff. So I could actually roll this piece back. And it doesn't roll back like this anymore because I have also glued, using epoxy, glued the laser bed to the rubber mat. So it's more lifts like on a hinge. But to date, I haven't had to get inside there. That's basically if something gets down in there, I need to clean it out or just gets mucked up. I've got a petcock at the bottom to drain everything. And I also have it so it opens and closes so it can draw air through there if I need to control the vacuum if it's too much. Mm-hmm. But fortunately, I haven't had to do that either because the shop vac was at the variable speed. I can adjust the shop vac for this section. Mm-hmm. So Jerry's got more here.
Yeah. A series. So I'll do them in order.
Yeah.
You know the answer, I assume, means I know the answer.
Yep.
Then he says, fold the interior first, then measure.
That's exactly right.
And he says, you will not get an accurate measurement by measuring flat.
Nope.
Yeah.
And then 100%. He says, hey, I think I have a few uploads about that.
Perfect.
I guess that's Jerry.
That's Jerry. And for people, if you don't know that you're watching this, go see Jerry's channel. He cranks out some great videos, and he's a wealth of information. Yeah, he was basically video-wise, Jerry was my inspiration to actually get into this. So he shows everything in very simple form. There's nothing complex, no complex chemicals. Shows you how to make the slurry for the pulp. It's great. Jerry, thumbs up. Thank you.
Absolutely. And for me, when I watch other people's channels, which I will tell you right now, if you have a channel, it may be an awesome channel. I probably don't have time to watch all of your uploads, frankly. I'm just too busy. And when I have a little bit of free time, I'm usually creating my own content. That doesn't mean you're not important, and I also don't assume everybody watches all my content. That said, for me,
Understandable.
there's certain touchstone content that I point at and I go, man, that stretched my understanding of what could be done. And I have to give credit to Jerry, the Jitterbug. That first, I think it was the first Leafcast project he did, which was a Hulk 181. And it
I
was like
remember that.
it was an awful restored 0.5. And not only did he get it into a conserved label, but he also got a huge grade bump. And I don't want to say, because I don't have it memorized and I don't want to be wrong, but I remember just being shocked and awed. And I remember that changed my perception of what could be done. And I've mentioned that before here on the channel, but for me, Larry, the book that you mended just with Japanese paper, the spine of every single wrap and put it back together, something that was a
Very impressive.
a 1 at best, and it came back a 6 or a 6.5, was it?
It was a 6.5, yeah.
6.5. That was another one that just changed my perception of what could be done and what we as conservators are capable of. And so I think it's great that we have a collaborative, mutually beneficial environment, community where we're all supporting one another and we can learn from one another and we can build this hobby to be better than it is today together. Right. So thanks. Great. Thank you. I want to restore that book now from full color touch, Jerry says.
Hey, on that note, I'll speak for him. Mr. Kenny Sanderson, like the man, like me, like there's more books out there than we can possibly do the work on. Like even if a dozen people start casting, like we can't all get to all the books out there. Like there really is that many, and like the Wonder World is a good example. They don't have to all be $20,000 books. There's a lot of books that can be saved in equity made on books that people can.
We're really not in competition, none of us, with one another. And it makes so much more sense to be collaborative and supportive and to be complimentary of one another's work and sort of build the community together,
I'm not doing this to go into to compete against Kenny. This for me is to do my own books. I got enough of my own stuff to do to keep me busy forever.
Well, I think this comment that I think I have to scroll up a little bit to see it. I want to get this right. Ben Stewart is who I thought said it. Yeah, he says, guys, this is monumental. This is what I think is happening right now. I think this is similar to when the 4-minute mile got broken. In terms of leaf casting in comic book conservation, it was thought to be impossible, and then someone did it, and within a few years, high school kids were doing it. We're running 4-minute miles. And I think in terms of leaf casting, for a long time, it was Kenny Sanderson, as far as I know, no one else in comic books anyway. And Jerry came along, and there's a few others in our conservation Facebook group. And now Larry's in the mix. Phil's going to be in the mix soon. My goal is to be in the mix by the end of the year. I think we are at the cusp of all of us as a community really taking a giant leap forward. And so I'm hats off to everybody who's participating in that. And today's your day, Larry. Today's the day we're celebrating you joining this club and doing so in spectacular fashion.
I was just, I didn't make a mess out of the first book.
There you go.
And now I after doing all the wraps, now I have enough confidence in it. I decided to jump in feet first, and I purchased a Batman 13, which is gonna have a lot of equity in it, and it's got some rat chewed corners and wormholes and all sorts of stuff, which is perfect for leaf casting.
Yeah, perfect.
Heck yeah.
Those early national books, man. Beautiful.
All right.
Let's see. Do we have another?
Yeah, you should. You should have
couple
a
more
whole story.
slides, right? Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this for people want to look. This is actually one of the pages I worked on. It's got the slurry around it. It's still wet. It's being vacuumed. Now, if you look, I am not using Hollytex here. I started out using Hollytex underneath it, and I believe it was Shelby. Shelby, if you're watching, thank you. Suggested silkscreen, and
Yep.
sure enough, hell of a lot cheaper than Hollytex, and it was so easy and workable, and left an absolute perfect finish on the end product. So what I would do in my process is I would get the slurry down. This went down very quickly, and then while it's still on the vacuum table, I lay another layer, just like you would with Hollytex for cleaning. And I just ran my finger right across all of it, smoothed everything out. And then from there, it went into the drying process.
Wow.
So, and it worked great. So yeah, you wet the whole wrap before you do any of this stuff. So
For the uninitiated, 25% calcium hydroxide is actually technically, it should say 25% saturated calcium hydroxide. We just use this as a shorthand. It doesn't mean by mass or volume 25% calcium hydroxide. It means 25% of a saturated calcium hydroxide.
correct.
The rest being water.
Yes.
And that's your basic deacidification wash. And then you want to use that as the base for your pulp casting as well, because then you leave an alkaline reserve behind in the paper and you protect it from acid catalyzed hydrolysis of the cellulose in the future. So that should be your sort of base solution for all of this work.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So using this after it goes into the drying process, and I treated it just like I would with, but the silkscreen, that was the key.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned Shelby. He actually messaged me and said, sorry, he can't join us tonight. He'll be watching
that's
on
too
Rewind.
bad.
He was traveling tonight, actually.
Okay. So this is what it looks like. All those edges with all those micro cracks and those big voids in the top. This is the front side. This is the side you just looked at. With all the wet slurry around it. It's been basically sealed, pressed flat, nice and smooth, and squished. Now, if you go to the next slide, you'll see it from the back side what it looks like. This is basically what you would use to do all your trimming, and of course, you save all your trimmings and put it right back into your leaf casting slurry. You reuse it. So there's no waste in this. So you get it all trimmed up. And if you go to the final slide there.
Before we move on, I noticed there's some wrinkles in the cast part especially, but it looks like maybe they wrinkled the actual page there on the bottom left.
Yes.
Is this just an intermediate step and then your final press?
This is an intermediate step, because remember we're adding paper.
Sure.
So so once it's trimmed away, all of these wraps were rehumidified and repressed. So
and
the
no
next
problems
one,
there, no waviness or anything.
Yeah, the next page, that's the same wrap.
It's the exact same wrap.
It's the exact same wrap.
I'm throwing you softballs here.
I know, that's okay. But the thing is all those wrinkles are gone.
Yeah.
So, and once it's trimmed up, the voids are all filled. The strength in the paper is now returned. Before you were handling these brittle pages, you're afraid that you're gonna just even the slightest bend, it's gonna just explode on you. Well, now that's not going to happen. You just gave it new life, new thickness, new depth.
Yeah. So your process here was like what Jerry the Jitterbug does these days, which is really spot casting, right? You weren't doing the slurry with pulp above the entire page and then let the vacuum pull it into the voids. You were doing
submersion.
Just spot casting on the edges. Yes.
I basically would run the slurry around the entire perimeter of the book. So in my learning process, all of these cracks, for the most part, were on the top and bottom of the page. They weren't not on the sides. However, handling the pages without doing those sides, guess what I did? I had to redo them, because just as gentle as I was, I would still I'd put a tear on the page. It was because it was that brittle. So now every single wrap, I just went ahead and just did the entire perimeter. So No
It's more
question.
uniform. Yep.
So I can manhandle it just like a brand new comic book wrap. I mean, it's not going to tear now.
I think I know the answer to this, but Jerry says, Larry, do you have a book binding press?
I do.
But doesn't use it.
I don't use it.
Yeah.
But Jerry, yes, I do.
I think he's referring to what he calls Big Bertha, I think, on his channel, which
Yeah, it's a screw down clamp press.
I
Yes.
think that
Go ahead.
I think
You're gonna say it.
I think that's technically a copy press, Jerry.
Yeah,
I don't think
press.
it's a book binding press, but I could be wrong. I think
I have a copy press.
they were made in the late 1800s before Xerox machines to make copies, and they're
You can see one in the back corner there.
slightly different than a book binding press. A book binding press would have 4 legs instead of 2, and would have a wider total aperture when you open it all the way up. But I think we know what you mean.
But to answer your question,
by your question, you mean Big Bertha.
Yeah, I have another project it's very long ones, but it's 100-page square bound, which I've disassembled. That one I will be using the press to reassemble. So yes,
Mike says he still can't hear us. Sorry, Mike. I guess you can't hear my apology. Maybe you can listen to it on rewind. It seems like it's only with you because we asked if anybody else was having issues. Nobody brought it. Nobody's mentioned it. So. Incredible.
Yep.
Larry, this is your first time. This is like I bet anything that 6 months from now you're looking to be like, oh, I can't believe I was doing it that way, and you'll scrutinize it.
I certainly hope so. This is definitely training wheels, like I said.
But the point is, this is incredible for your first go. Like you bit that fear of failure right off and just jumped right in, and I love it. It's great.
Go big, go home. So here we are on this cover wrap. It was horrible that it's separated, but I knew I needed to rejoin it, and I didn't know. And this actually plays into Jerry's statement that you do need to put everything back together first, so you can take your proper measurements. Now, in my particular case, I skipped that step and I actually put it back together. I measured it, did calculations down to the millimeter, and I filled the void in. Now, when it comes to reassembly, I probably will. I may be redoing the center section. I know there's more material than probably is necessary. So I'll check it, and I can just slice it right down the middle. Run a piece of 3,000 grit sandpaper down it, and just redo the entire cast and rebond it.
This looks clean, like they should have been opposed, right, tied up one against each other. No.
Yeah,
I agree, but because the way it was glued. There was significant difference between that first wrap and the cover pieces.
Interesting.
It was about 5 millimeters, which is the amount of the material I ended up putting in between.
Sure.
So in the next slide, you'll see I changed the color. I just went with a standard newsprint color because the cover was colored anyway, and it really didn't matter. So I just went with something that was handy.
Mm-hmm.
So again, this is here. It's on the silkscreen cloth. It's being pulled down by the vacuum, and then the final slide, you'll see what it looks like rebonded.
Wow.
Hey.
Wonderbar. So your pulp was, you told us before, but I think it's newsprint plus 50-50 newsprint and old comic book margins?
Correct. I actually took some of Jerry's advice, and I used brand new newsprint, and I basically used 50% of that. I went on eBay quite some time ago because I actually needed old staples. So I bought a bunch of coverless books from the 40s and 50s, harvested the staples, and I had every intention of someday learning leaf casting. So I had stacks and stacks of these
Love
books. So I didn't use anything that had color print on it. I basically cut off just the uncolored paper parts, deacidified all that, and several rinses, and then I mix that about 50-50 with the pulp. People are asking, is there any methyl cellulose in there? Did I add any starch? No, it is strictly
Yeah.
pulp, paper pulp.
My
That's
question.
Paper
My
pulp
question is,
and water. And your
Paper-
water base was 25% calcium hydroxide or just water at that point for your pulp?
25% calcium hydroxide.
Yeah, I think that's
did
the
you
way to
use
go.
a different pulp mixture for the interior pages versus what you used for the cover here, or was it the same?
Well, the cover is 100% newspaper pulp.
Okay.
Newsprint,
Newsprint.
deacidified newsprint.
Newsprint pulp. Yeah.
Newsprint. Okay,
With no
gotcha.
mixed in old vintage comics.
Nope. That's all
So
it is.
there's no cotton rag.
I did make up a batch using cotton, and I made an absolute mess out of my blender. I put too much in.
That's okay.
And
So-
speaking of, what is the volume of paper to water here in terms of making the pulp?
Well, it's one of those great big the newsprint pulp. I would say the pulp that I made more than I need. So I've got some weird looking containers inside my refrigerator at home. But I used probably about an 18-inch square of newspaper pulp or a print, and I just kind of an equal amount of old comic book trimmings.
Okay.
So, but
And
I have
terms of-
way more than I needed to do all the wraps and everything.
In terms of this new paper that you've casted in, it folds, it bends. I mean, you said it's essentially like new paper. It's in every way like new paper.
Exactly.
Wow. Incredible. Great
Thank you.
work.
Yeah.
We have a couple of questions. I think we
Okay.
can remove this and we can jump a couple questions up. We can go like that because I think
There we
these
go.
are for you. Let's see. Here we go. First up, Ben says, money is minimal. How many hours invested?
How many hours invested? The construction of the whole casting table, because I was inventing as I went along, but I would say I didn't put a whole lot into it. Maybe I did it in maybe 2 days work.
Yeah, you did it over a weekend, right?
Yeah, I did. Well, I had to stop and go to work and do some other things, and I still had stuff in the back of my
hate
head.
when
I
work
just
gets in the way of our comic book hobby, man.
well, I know that damn work. So I'm on the road, and I'm just thinking. I'm thinking about this thing and how I'm going to do certain things. I got, oh yeah, and
Mhm.
then I got to get home and implement everything, which is really what I did. But yeah, Ben, it was probably just you can do it in a weekend.
Yeah.
And then the whole process of doing the wraps is it's
Mhm.
pretty easy. Okay,
Jerry
Jerry,
says
soak the cover, remove the pulp.
That's why we
Are we
love the
doing that?
reversibility of leaf casting. Yes.
Yeah,
Jerry also says, I would feather the pulp outside the spine, which I'm sure you did.
I did. Yeah, that's excellent advice, Jerry.
Yep.
Well, Ben says press between Bristol paper. I think you do not use Bristol paper.
I do not use Bristol paper. I use run-of-the-mill Office Depot 11 by 17, printer paper.
Printer paper, and you leave it in the Hollytex for the press.
I leave it in the Hollytex, and then I will use 3 sheets on top and on bottom of this 11 by 17.
And it's essentially sort of absorbing the water that's driven out.
Well, I'll use paper. I'll use a couple different drying cycles. I'll use the first cycle will be 10 minutes with strictly paper towels, and you're going to pull that off. Once you do that, change out the paper towels again. Another 10 minutes doing that.
The steamy paper towels, put them on your face, get a good shave.
Yep, kind of like that. And I should clarify, the final one is I remove the Hollytex. It's just the wrap itself. It's still kind of moist, but I want to get those paper towel marks out of it, because you do that, it's going to be all wrinkly. The paper looks like a paper towel.
Yeah.
So then that's when I use that bond paper. It's nice and smooth, and I lay it out, and those wraps are just smooth as glass when they're done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ben, you may be, or was it Ben that asked this question? Yeah, it was Ben. You may be recalling, I use a method not quite as quick as Larry's, in which I end up with my last part of the press being in Bristol paper. So that may be the confusion. I typically will just do cold press, and I'll swap out my paper towels about 3 times, and then I'll go into, I have done it in heated press. I got motivation from Larry, and I sometimes do, but Larry is not home all that often. And he's got to maximize the time that he's physically in Folsom. So he's really got it worked out so that he can press a whole book in a day after washing all the pages. You know, I'm a hobbyist. I'm at home. I have the luxury of just being able to sort of take my time. And I have 4 presses, but I'm rarely using more than 2 of them. So I will just do it the sort of slow way and change the paper towels out a few times, and then go into Bristol paper in a cold press. And that works well for me.
I'm usually up at 7 and I go to bed at 11.
Yeah.
And I'm doing comic books all day, every day while I'm home.
I love it.
Absolutely. Well, what else do we want to talk about, guys? That I was super pumped for today's show, and it did not disappoint. We had a great opening segment.
Yeah, it's a good show.
Shocking.
I think it's a cornerstone show. You know, I really think it is.
Yeah. And then, of course, the highlight was Captain Larry joining the Leaf Casting Club, and in really great fashion. So again, congratulations. Again, everybody, check out in the description. We have the links to Captain Larry's channel, Flying L Comics. Check out the series. There's going to be a lot more coming. I think it's fair to say the first video is not really a full how-to. It's more of how you put together the casting table, and then some of your results that you speak over in stills. So it's not a full follow-on on how to do this. That'll be coming.
Yeah.
As soon as he can get back in the States.
I'm excited to get home and get this thing finished.
Well, I very much appreciate everybody joining us today. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, everyone in the comments. Thanks, Jerry, who's a star in his own right, joining us here.
Thanks for
Jerry,
being here,
if you want to join us, reach out. Be happy to have you on the show sometime. And I hope everybody just has an amazing week. We'll see you back in 1 week. And until then, take care of one another.
See you later, everybody.